Oh no! It's morning!
And that means it's time for the Rotten Mournings. Best way to start your morning off.
Did you mash it? You gonna mash it?
No, I mashed the button, Grim. I pressed the button, okay?
Okay.
That's not how we start the
It's
podcast.
just a fucking question!
Yeah,
Is
no,
it
I
on?
know, but
Is
that's
it
how we
going?
start
I
the
just wanna
podcast is
know.
by pressing the button. We
Okay.
do that every time.
So we're
Guys,
on.
we're on.
Okay.
Welcome
Matt,
to Rotten
we're
Mornings. This is a new episode of Season 9. I'm Scott.
I'm Matt.
I'm Brandy.
I'm Grim.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Frankie. Hey, Scott, I got chewing gum. Is that okay?
What? Did you bring... What?
Do you have enough to share with the rest
Wait.
of the class?
I do. Does everybody want chewing gum?
Yes.
Like a lot of chewing gum.
Yes, I want chewing
Like
gum.
everybody have multiple pieces of chewing gum.
Yes.
we
failed,
nom,
you
nom,
still
nom,
get chewing
nom.
gum.
I can't do that. I've got fake teeth in.
You got one fake
Pussy.
You have teeth.
Frankie was chewing gum, but I don't know if it's
Why do you have that in your mouth, Scott?
There's a lot of chewing gum.
So yeah.
It's just a ton of... We're supposed to be going over the news now?
Why are you chewing on the dog's
Do
tail?
we have rotten news?
I thought it was chewing
What did
gum.
we do for the past 2 weeks?
I don't
let's
remember.
start off 2 weeks ago. I have no fucking clue what we did or what we talked
God
about
damn
last
it.
time.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. We began a new business enterprise with the Rotten Catch a Murder Man.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
there is that.
We
that's
filmed.
true.
Okay, so last week on Saturday, when we got back home, all of a sudden, just like Joseph in the basket of in the Nile, Frankie appeared on our door.
And in case you guys
Just
didn't
like
know,
everything you said. That was exactly.
this is my long lost brother, guys. Meet Frankie.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Ta-da!
Anybody that has known us for an extended amount of time has known that Frankie was here with us when we first started doing this stuff, and he has returned to the fold. He was doing a lot of work. He was out on street corners just selling that ass left and right.
Fresh fish!
And now he's back with us, and we couldn't be happier about it. So
You leave my hobbies out of this.
so we shot a scene last weekend. That was super fun, and hopefully we'll be coming up in a new series that we're working on.
You will see it
We haven't
soon.
gotten that far in the idea stage. We're just working on stuff.
As
Sounds
for
like you
other
filmed
rotten
something.
news, the video for Murder You by Left Hand Black
That's
was
right.
released.
The
Oh,
video
yes.
from Left Hand Black was
Mhm.
released, and it was awesome.
100 out of 10.
If you have not seen it, you should definitely go check it out on YouTube and Facebook.
That's right. And there's actually a guy that does reviews of like underground music that did a
Was
review of
a
it. It was
showcase.
so awesome to
something?
see somebody
Showcase
doing a
Unlimited?
review
Yes,
of
it
one
was
of our
awesome.
videos. Please, guys, if you
Showcase
guys want us
Unsigned.
to watch your
Unsigned.
YouTube
Showcase
channel and want to
Unsigned.
get our attention, do a review of one of our videos,
Oh,
please, because we
yes.
would love the shit out of that. And you can like really be brutal on it. We're not tenderhearted. We love people being mean about this stuff.
Please, if you're listening to this, be my friend, please. Please
Be
like
my
me.
friend.
So we also got a new sponsor.
I'm not pandering.
We released some more shirt designs.
We did. We released
as well on
like
TeePublic.
about 6 new shirt designs. We've got some more in the works.
See.
We also got a new sponsor. The grocery store that we work for is now sponsoring us.
Buckeye Grocery in
And we're
Argo,
going to be doing
Alabama.
some commercials for them. So you'll see a couple of commercials pop up on Rotten for them, and they'll have a Facebook soon, and they've already got a TikTok that we've been working on a few things.
This podcast is now bilingual. I don't know if anybody mentioned that.
It
Smut,
is.
smee, smee, smie.
Oh my God.
Spot,
Trilingual.
Spam it,
Spud,
small.
spam it!
Spice man, small.
At least quadlingual. Is that a word?
Shit.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Quadlingual.
Also, oh gosh, what was I going to say? It was important, I'm sure of it. The Good Stuffs
Did you just fart?
is
Good
releasing
Stuffs kettle
another
corn.
one of their like full
Posters.
theater posters with all the different images. And for the first time ever, Rotten will be on that poster. We're getting some animated characters of us. We don't actually have a popcorn through them.
No.
But we're going to get animated characters, and you'll see those show up on shirts soon also. As
I
well
want
as
fucking spaghetti popcorn. I will keep saying
Oh my
it
God.
until somebody makes
Every
it happen.
fucking day with
They
do
spaghetti
listen
pop.
to
No!
So would you like spaghetti popcorn or spaghetti and meatballs popcorn?
Spaghetti
Now,
popcorn,
they
Scott.
do.
Okay.
They
Meatballs are
do
from
have
India. That's
a
not the same
pizza.
Not all balls are from India. Hashtag not all balls.
Spaghetti popcorn.
spaghetti popcorn.
No compromises.
Biscotti.
Spaghetti popcorn or the fucking
It's
lady gets it.
Biscotti.
I have also
Don't you threaten me.
Also heard, and this is just for you podcast listeners, a fun little did you know? But Mr. Fuzzy Pants will have a popcorn very soon.
Woohoo!
Yes!
Will it have fuzz?
Maybe.
Will it taste like rabbit?
Will it be
Will it?
carrot flavored?
I hope it's
Carrot.
I hope
Carrot
it's
cake?
carrot caked and it's light blue and light pink like the little tuft of punk hair he's got.
That would be funny. So yeah,
Man, that was a great segment.
Carrots are
We
a
might-
funny vegetable.
it is highly possible that we have other rotten news to share with you, but if we do, we have forgotten it. So
I think
we
that it's
have.
really kind of, we do this all the time, and I really want to point out that it's kind of selfish of us. We do this podcast, it's us and the listeners, right? And we always talk, and we always tell them our news, but we never listen
I don't.
to their
I mean,
news.
We never
I like
listen
being
to the
I'm a very-
podcast.
we never listen to each other.
So I thought it would be nice if the listeners got a chance to tell
Well,
us
Is
what's
it
going on.
still selfish if I just don't give a shit? Does
Yeah,
that count
you
as
know,
selfish?
Listen,
Hashtag fuck them
technically
listeners.
speaking, we do listen to what the listeners have to say because in this room are 3 of our only listeners.
I'm not one of them.
Yeah, what's weird is that we've got 3 of the 2 listeners.
And I listen.
Oh, man.
Number.
This is season 9. We have made it 9 seasons on this.
How is that possible?
And it's technically
Each
episodes.
season like 2 episodes. Like how is
Yes.
I mean, some of them, yeah.
And it's technically episode 107, I believe.
Or 109, or
or
it's 101.
It's something along those-
532.
Yeah. So this season will be a little bit longer season. We will be
Maybe.
running this season.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me stop you right there. A little bit longer as in season-wise.
Carrie sniffing the podcast.
Or a little
Carrie,
bit...
why are you sniffing the podcast?
A
She
little
won't
bit
even know what
longer
flavor
as in,
podcast
let's
it was.
not forget that episode 100 was 3.5 hours long.
It's rotten.
Okay,
flavored.
she says she can smell the audience when she sniffs the podcast.
Oh, I bet
Oh.
they're terrible.
Carrie,
She
smell
says they
like.
smell good.
They smell like, popcorn.
Nice.
Not spaghetti popcorn though, so I don't give a shit.
No, it's blood popcorn.
Yeah, so what I mean by longer, we'll have many episodes of this season. This season will run until we start the massive season 10.
Ooh.
And season 10 will be our October season, which
Yes.
That's where we do the one where we do it daily.
Yes,
where we hate each other daily.
Yes.
Yeah.
So stay tuned to the post-credit scene for the podcast to get a sneak peek.
There should be a cameo there you won't even believe.
Probably got Doctor Strange in it.
Probably.
Stop it! God damn it, Carrie!
Hey, we're not supposed to be saying that on
Hey,
the podcast.
What time is
Look
it?
out.
We can't say her name.
Yeah.
Hey,
Look out.
what time is it?
It's
Taco time.
taco time. Taco Friday.
Fresh fish.
Fresh fish.
How many times have we said podcast and not once has her fucking ass screamed podcast yet?
I don't want her
What are you
ass to
talking
scream it.
about?
Did she have Brandy?
She never does that.
Oh, no.
It's a poo cast.
It's a poo cast. There you go.
Podcast! Oh, Carrie did that. That was not me. Way to go,
We don't
Carrie.
want to lose our
So,
listeners
yeah.
that are here for like losing their hearing.
Smobsmissamine.
Motherfucker.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for
The first
Happy
half of
birthday.
this
Another
podcast.
rotten
what
morning.
the first segment. I don't know how many segments this next
We're not even out of the intro yet.
No, this is the intro. This is us,
That's what I'm saying. We're not out of it yet.
and we didn't even do the weather. Frankie, I
This
thought
is
you were gonna-
Frankie with the weather. Clouds are a thing.
Oh, I've seen one. I have today.
Where was it?
Yeah, it was outside.
Podcast! Yay! Sorry, I'm late.
So we
Welcome
welcome to the podcast.
Hi,
Yeah,
guys.
so we covered the news, we covered the weather, then we covered sports.
What's sports?
All right, guys, we're going to break and we'll see you back in a
Streaming.
little bit. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back for this
Ta-da.
next section. I hope you guys are sitting down and strapped in, and then have kicked your chair off a bridge because this is going to be a long one.
Yep.
Woo! In this section of the podcast, we're going to be talking about iconic horror icons.
Iconic icon.
That's great.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
We're going to be as redundant as possible.
Yeah,
This
we are
is-
going to be redundant as possible.
I thought you said this was supposed to
Redundant.
be professional now.
And redundant.
Poo-fressional.
I'm so confused.
I'm sorry. This is
Professional.
this is going to be professional. We will be handling this as the professionals that we am.
I don't know
Ants.
anything about this.
We ants.
Rotten does not equal professional.
Yeah, but this is really exciting because these are horror films that we grew up with and have
Yes.
enjoyed for years and years and years, and we get to talk about them. Finally, we've been wanting to talk about these since we started the
Always.
podcast. Yeah, the podcast. That's not a thing.
Podcast.
And I guess
Buckle in, guys. It might be a bit of an episode.
yeah. Remember to hydrate.
Yes.
The first one that we'll be talking about is a little film that started a lot of horror for a lot of people. Was Friday the 13th.
No.
No, that's not what we're
Son of
talking
a
about.
biscuit! I'll
You
edit that
already
out.
screwed that
I'll-
up, you
it's not.
idiots.
It's not Friday the 13th.
Idiots.
F on the test.
And we go to Matt.
Fail!
All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking about a series of films that are quite possibly my favorite slasher, my favorite films, the most, bar none, if you really think about it, the most terrifying slasher that there is, and that is
Smitty.
Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger.
All right, so real quick, full transparency here. Got a confession to make. So I was trying to do, like in-depth research for this this podcast, and I did a lot of research on Freddy Cooper, who is a plumber that lives in Limestone County, Alabama. I thought it was weird that you were wanting to dedicate like a 3-hour podcast to him. But I mean, that's who am I to question?
That's a sponsor.
You
actually.
effectively researched like a raccoon. You just sat outside of his window and went through his trash.
Yeah, and now I've got charges pressed against me.
God damn it.
Well, I think that tracks.
Stalkers,
Yeah.
So-
no difference.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I'm going to turn it to Brandy for a second to give you the statistics of the first movie.
Oh, the first one.
Yes.
Well, the first one, A Nightmare on Elm Street, was released on November 9th of 1984. It was directed by Wes Craven. Awesome. He was also the screenwriter and wrote the original story. And then Robert Shea was the producer, and this was actually one of the first films produced by New Line Cinema. I believe before that they were more of a film distributor,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
not producing. So, and that is why New Line Cinema is nicknamed the house that Freddy built. The budget was $1.1 million, and the box office was $57 million worldwide. On their opening weekend, they made $1,271,000.
That's
And
wrong.
I'll tell you a little story about my first experience with Nightmare on Elm Street. I was 5 years old when it came out. My mom was working at a drive-in theater, and she went to visit one of her girlfriends that was working at the front desk, because she would go out, and she was not married at the time. She had just recently got divorced. Well, not recently, but she wasn't remarried again. And me and my brother sat in the back of a white pickup truck and watched the entirety of Nightmare on Elm Street with absolutely no sound whatsoever because we weren't close enough to one of the sound boxes. And it was fucking terrifying. Like, I did not have any clue what anything meant just seeing these images and these, like, what the hell's going on? Somebody's getting drug up the wall and fucking this guy with long arms and these claws, and then you get to the end and the girls. One of the things that I remember that always stuck in my head was the scene when the mom is like fried and slowly descends into the depths of the emptiness of her bed, and it just like traumatized me as a kid.
And see, it was that incident and you getting your butthole touched that made you into the man you are today.
Correct. So, you know, it's always stood out to me as my favorite slasher. I've always had a kinship. Freddy is scary and funny, and it's kind of like what we at ROTN have always wanted to do. We are scary and funny. I've always loved the personality of Freddy. I always felt like Jason and Michael just didn't have the personality that all the other slashers never had, the type of personality that Robert Englund brought to the
didn't have
Freddy
a lot
Krueger
of
character.
talking.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, that was the thing. Is like Michael Myers, Jason, you know, maybe they were funny. Maybe they were just shy.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's like,
alright.
say a funny joke, you jackass.
So I have a note about that because I did actually like have enough time to watch a little bit of the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So the Freddy Krueger that you think of, like the pop culture idea of the character Freddy Krueger, is not the character in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. The Freddy that's, you know, doing the one-liners, the quips, got the sense of humor, not in the first Nightmare on Elm
Nope,
Street.
not at all.
Alright, so in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger's approach to child murder is like Rob Zombie's approach to filmmaking.
Oof. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. People think I'm okay at it.
Really?
No, it's literally like he runs up to Tina. Like his whole thing throughout the movie when he's chasing kids around the nightmares is he's just like, he literally at one point says, "Hey Tina, peep this," and he cuts his fingers off.
Yeah.
He's like, "Isn't that fucked up, bro?
It's
Isn't
like,
that so
oh,
extreme?"
fuck, I need that finger. I can only do this trick once.
Like literally everything is just visual.
No,
Like
the idea
Well,
that
true,
you get of
but-
Freddy being the quip-throwing, like, goofball literally came from part 3. When they kind of moved Freddy into the MTV era, and it was really the interview that they did on the TV show that brought him into that area. It was Zsa Zsa Gabor was on a talk show, and of course, and we'll get back to part 3, but that's where that image really started plugging away. But you know,
they never knew in developing the first one that Freddy would become iconic. Wes Craven was not interested in doing a sequel to this in any way
but his
whatsoever at
producer
that point in time.
wanted it to be.
Well, yeah,
Which is
because
why the second
slasher
one has nothing
franchises
to do
were-
with Wes Craven.
slasher franchises would carry studios.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was if you came up with a character that got a little traction, they were gonna.
But
They
at
were
the
gonna want
time that they
sequels.
did that, they had no idea what success they would garner from Freddy. They had
Well,
no
and
idea.
not
that
to
he
mention
would
the fact
become
that
as
Wes
iconic as
Craven,
he
like,
has.
It's like sold all the licensing, all the rights to the character
Mhm.
just to get the money to be able to make it. And his producer like levied his house and
Yes,
his everything he
everything.
owned.
Everything.
So when they made that $47 million off the first movie, they did not get a single penny
And
of
Wes,
that money.
as we all know, Wes Craven died poor and alone doing nothing else in it.
Probably the biggest tragedy of the nightmare
well,
story.
like to me,
He did not come up with a single other idea for a slasher franchise. You know, it was never produced.
The end.
Well, I also, grew up watching all of these movies, and I also found Nightmare to be the scariest of the slashers. Like with Halloween, it's not that I disliked Halloween and Friday the 13th. It was more that Michael Myers was just a guy in a mask.
Yeah.
And with Jason, you had a
Oh,
little
you're
bit
hurting my
more.
heart.
Well,
I had to agree
like I
with
said,
her
I don't
wholeheartedly.
dislike them. I love them for what they are, but it didn't have the same sense of terror to me. And it wasn't because of each of them individually as characters. It really had more to do with the sleep thing. You can't go to sleep. The one time that you truly have no control is when you are in your dreams or nightmares, and that completely takes over your psyche, and you have no control, no escape, no
The thing
no
that-
running
The
away.
thing that
Yeah.
geeked me out about that the most is the fact that in those movies, you'll notice that what Freddy liked to do with the dreams is he wanted them to think that they were awake
Yeah.
while they were asleep. So he would formulate these dream worlds and be like, all right, make them feel as comfortable as possible, and then be like, psych, it's a dream, ha ha ha, gotcha. You know, and like that's what always, because now you go to sleep and you're thinking, is this a dream? Am I dreaming now? Like so many times throughout my childhood, which is how I learned how to lucid dream in the first place, was because I was literally like, I need to know the difference between being awake and being in the dream world. And I think that Freddy captured that sense of no escape. Because in your dreams, like, have you ever tried to wake yourself up when you're having a nightmare? Like, all I gotta do is just wake up. It's a fucking bitch. And you would figure it would just be the easiest thing in the world. It's your body, you're asleep, you're telling yourself to wake up, and you're like, I can't
It's
wake
that
up.
sense of no control. Like any other slasher film, it has nothing to do with being asleep, and you have this feeling of, I'll be fine as long as I run that way, or as long as I can get to this thing, I'll be fine. But when you have no control over where you are or what you're seeing, that's the truly terrifying part to me.
And I love the fact that Wes Craven, he was so smart in his timing of dropping the movie, because the sleep, what's it called? Sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome had really spiked in cases that were reported. He had heard from an article in the LA Times about a family who had escaped the killing fields in Cambodia, and they managed to get to the U.S. Suddenly their son started having disturbing nightmares, and he kept telling his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him. So he kept trying to stay awake for days at a time. He finally slept, and his parents thought it was over. Well, they heard the kid screaming in the middle of the night, but by the time he got to them, he was actually dead from this, syndrome. So I feel like he was so smart in the timing of that, because he really played on a fear that was happening in the U.S.
I can't believe that
Broadly
they
at that
killed a
time.
bunch of kids in order to market that film.
Yeah.
They did the clown
Well,
sightings
that's
for
another
it,
aspect to it, though, because lack of sleep and not sleeping, keeping yourself awake in order to avoid something, causes so much mental damage to yourself
Yes.
that relates to
does.
physical damage as well.
I'll tell you another super fun fact about that particular syndrome is that there is still to this day in China, I believe it is, that there is still this running urban legend that if you sleep with a fan running in your room, that it will kill you. So there are no fans in people's rooms. They don't want a fan on them at all, even if it's freaking hot, because they're afraid that they will die because of this fan, because of how many people died from
Because
that.
they can't catch it, right?
Yes. Exactly.
So
That's why I
just to
sleep with
kind
the fan on.
of get us steered back here, do you want to go over the plot of the first one?
Well, okay, we'll just do a quick synopsis.
Sure.
Basically, you've got this group of friends that start seeing this thing appearing in their dreams.
This LD edgelord that sits at the back of the class. That's like, he draws skulls with daggers in them on his notebook.
Yep.
And he's like, oh man, look how twisted that is. That guy gets into your dreams and he has a knife hand.
Yep. And it progresses where you have that classic, as you, the viewer of the movie, look at it and go, how in the world can these parents not realize that somebody doesn't get pulled into their bed and become a fountain of blood on their own? That just doesn't happen. But parents were willfully ignorant. You see such an idea of cognitive dissonance in the adults in Elm Street, And as you start to progress, spoiler alerts, that you start to realize that the reason they're having that cognitive dissonance is because they're trying to mask their own sin from their kids. And that sin was that Freddy Krueger, God, I hate that I'm going to say this, was a child molester, child killer.
He was a child killer. It was never established that he was a child molester.
But here's the thing. Wes Craven said the whole time he had set up Freddy as a child molester, but because there were so many stories coming out in 84 and 85, that there was like a whole entire school that like basically took charges against the people that ran the school of this systematic rape of children in that school, that he was like, all right, we need to kind of draw that back.
Yeah.
And that's
but
why it was child
think
killer.
about what Freddy does. He is in the beds of teenage girls in their dreams. How much more inside of them? And like that is the representation of like literally taking advantage of somebody in their fucking dreams.
Yeah.
When you say someone has dreams and then you say, oh, I'm going to take those dreams and murder you in them, that's like such a rogue idea. So I hate it, but yes, Freddy was originally intended to be a child molester. Yeah. But, you know, Freddy goes through where all these things are happening and he starts killing all these kids. And eventually, you know, one of the kids is like, you know what, I'm going to take care of this problem. He can't keep killing my friends. And she goes into the dream world.
Which kid was this?
That was Nancy. And, of course, Nancy finally decides she's going to do something about it. Her father is the chief of police. At that time, he is investigating the death of her friend who lived next door. Her mom has completely flipped her shit and put bars on the windows and told her basically, like, you know, this is all stupid. You're just being ridiculous. She's drunk as shit. So the one parent that she had that could have helped her was completely, like, taken out of it by herself just because of her own grief. And then it kind of becomes a Home Alone movie a little bit, which is a little hokey-ish. But, and her point...
It's like the Wet Bandits if they diddled kids.
Yes, but you know what?
Oh my
Listen,
God.
that being said, if Home Alone, if they actually did, if she had set up the traps from Home Alone, she would have killed Freddy in no time. Because the traps in Home Alone were way more dangerous than the traps. But listen, Wes Craven said that he had a booklet from, like, the fucking special forces that were all about how to set up, like, impromptu, like, traps. And he just fell in love with that shit. And you can see them in every Wes Craven movie.
Yeah.
Every Wes Craven movie has an impromptu trap in it.
So she sets up all these traps and then...
And, of course, Freddy comes after her. She knocks him down. She does all this terrible shit to him. She thinks she's won. And then Freddy's like, you know what? Cool. I can't fuck with you, but your mom's drunk. I'm taking her out. And he takes her out.
Okay.
And then at the end of the movie, she wakes up. It seems like everything is a dream. She goes and gets in the car. And, of course, there's so much debate about the ending of that movie. They shot like 8 different endings to it, you know, all the way from Freddy driving the car to Freddy being the car to the mom being pulled into the window, which ended up being the ending. And the way the legs bend when she gets pulled in the window is the most hilarious thing in the world.
She was doing the hokey pokey.
Yeah. But in the end, what Robert Englund said is that he always saw it as if the whole movie was Nancy's dream, and the last scene in the movie was really like it was a precognitive like idea of what Nancy saw happening. And when she gets in that car, that's really where all that stuff is going to start happening.
So you're basically saying it's cowardly, the cowardly dog.
Yes, it's basically courage. Yeah.
Well, also the way they chose to end that at that time, they never expected to do a sequel at that point in time.
So we should point out that in this film was, I think, the first film that Johnny Depp was in.
Yes.
Right?
And it's so funny to
Yeah.
hear Wes Craven talk about Johnny Depp.
First.
Huh? No.
Was it the first?
Yes. Is the first
I know it was
Johnny
definitely
Depp.
Introducing Johnny Depp.
Yes. And it's so funny to hear Craven talk about Johnny Depp being this really shy, like, every time they cut the camera on, he's a big smile, and they're like, calm the fuck down.
And he still calls him John when he talks
Were
about
they
him,
looking
too.
for,
And
like,
it was
this
so funny, the
strong
scene.
football type?
Yeah, they were
or
looking for a
whatever?
strong football type, and they got wiry, geeky.
Little peaked
When
Johnny
when
Depp.
Nancy shits in his bed.
Oh my God!
the bed.
Oh my
I
It
do.
all
I
makes
want
sense now.
I want to point out a couple of things that happened in this film that's really neat. The spray of blood was one of the coolest effects that had been shown on screen then. And Craven had actually taken hints from what Rob Tappert and Sam Raimi had done with Evil Dead, with messing with the cameras and different angles. So that whole room is built upside down, and they just pour blood. They turn the camera upside
And
down.
they talk about it being extremely disorienting for the actors, where they feel like they're falling every time they're in the room, and like having to like snap them out of it. You're fine.
Now
You're staying
again,
there.
you have to remember this movie was made for like $1,000,001.
Yeah.
That room, none of this shit was safe.
Oh,
Because it was built
not
for the
even
like
close.
lowest
Not at
amount of
all.
money. Like, let's build a rotating
Hey.
room for under $100,000.
Before we get too far from the ending, like I want to bring up something for the audience that you and I have discussed before. Audience, what color was the door?
Holy
Oh.
fucking shit!
What color was the
Yes.
door that
This
Freddy pulls the mom
Still
into?
to this day fucks my shit up so bad because
Was it brown?
it was fucking red. I know it was red.
But
and
it wasn't,
You
though.
go back and watch the movie and the fucking door is blue and it pisses me off and I'm like, why is there a blue door on this fucking building? You can see it. It's red and green, just like his sweater. It was always red and green. The awnings
But
were
it's
green and the
not,
door was
though.
red, but it's not. It's like baby blue. What the fuck?
That's crazy.
I remember we were
So
sitting
you're
here
saying
watching-
you're
be
saying
a-
that
We
you
had
remember this,
such
but
an
it's not true.
argument
This is a
about this,
Mandela.
too.
Yes, this is a Mandela effect for me.
Mandela.
And you remember this being red?
I
and
could
green?
have sworn up and fucking
It was
down the
red,
door was
yeah.
red.
I
The
could have
whole
too.
time. Even the toys I have that have a representation of the door, it's all red. There was never a blue door.
Do you think maybe you remember the movie being that because the toys were like that?
I know because
remember,
I didn't
80s
get the
toys
toys
were always
until
like
way
weird
after
colors.
the fact, though.
That's true.
My mom wouldn't let me buy Freddy Krueger toys.
Yeah, she let you watch it in its entirety while you were 5.
Never would let me watch horror movies.
That was an
but
accident,
somehow
like
it
the
was-
time she left him with his uncle and then the
Ah.
butthole touch.
Oops. Uncle
so-
Freddy.
So I had brought up, and I'll throw these in there, but I had brought up Evil Dead's director Sam Raimi, who had done the Evil Dead films. There's a little snippet that there was a back and forth between these directors. So Jaws had come out, and it was one of the scariest films of all time to a lot of people. And then when Evil Dead came out,
Well, preface that by saying it's a PG scariest
oh
movie of
yeah,
all time.
absolutely, like The Fog.
Yeah. Oh god, don't start. It's not. Oh fucking hell.
I can't wait for your episode about the Sentinel.
Ooh, I'm here for the booty.
Oh, I got so much to say about the Sentinel.
All right, so in the film,
there.
in the film Evil Dead, when they go down to the basement, you see a copy of Jaws that's been torn in half.
No, it's The Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes. Nope, that's the second one.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's, okay, right.
All right, and then so to get to, and that's to say, hey, Jaws was the scariest film. Our film is scarier. And then so in Nightmare, the film that Johnny Depp is watching,
No, it's Nancy. She's in her room.
Nancy's
in
watching.
Bed.
I thought it was Johnny Depp was watching it.
She had just hid her coffee, and her mom had come in like, no, it's time to go to bed. And she was like, okay, and she goes over and cuts off Evil Dead on her TV.
Yeah, and that was thrown in there to say, hey, however scary you thought Evil Dead was, my film is scarier. And then Raimi came back later
With
and
the
put
Hills
the
Have
gloves and the Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah,
and there's
and
actually the
had
glove
the-
is in the cabin.
Really awkward watching two men stroke each other like that. You know, why can't they just be like John Carpenter, just tease himself in the middle of his own movie? John Carpenter, all he's gonna do is like tease you about what he's about to do. He doesn't give a fuck what Sam Raimi's up
Yeah.
to.
Mhm.
He's like, Wes Craven, who, bitch? Here's the thing. Here's
So-
the thing. How about that?
Have we finished the first?
Well, do y'all have
Well,
anything?
what about the iconic, like how it has passed on? What is still around in our culture now from the first one?
That's a good question.
Maybe someone will answer that
Definitely
one.
a lot of the SFX artists that were in the first Nightmare,
That
did
worked
the
on
makeup for it, yeah. They went on to get more acts because of that movie and because of the way they did Freddy without having to use a mask. and building it onto his face. A lot of them went on to do makeup for Scream and other horror movies and stuff.
I like how he says that he was sitting in front of a pizza and just started moving the cheese and the pepperoni around, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is Freddy's face right here." Like,
that's how his
cheese
yeah.
What about where his hat came from?
I haven't. Please enlighten.
When he was a child, Wes Craven, that is.
Not Freddy.
Yes,
Cooper.
yes. I think you had told me about this.
Actually, Freddy Cooper's hat.
He was a child. He was laying there in bed at night, and there was a man that he thought was staring at him, and he closed his eyes because he thought he was just imagining it in the dark. And he opened it back up, and the man had turned, and he was wearing the hat of Freddy, and that's where Wes Craven got the idea of that
he had the hat and the trench coat,
yes.
and he was out in the alley and just smiling at him, and Wes was like, how does this guy, he just seems so happy to terrify children.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he got the essence of Freddy, and not to mention the fact that the name Freddy came from a bully that bullied Wes Craven when he was in school, that he had a bully that used to pick on him all the time named Freddie, and he was like, that's the name.
Fred.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't actually.
It wasn't Fred Krueger.
It was just
but
Fred.
It was Fred.
What wasn't the?
It was Chad Kruger.
It was Freddy Cooper.
We're gonna get a lot of
He
trouble.
was
for
raised by
defamating.
foster parents.
Well, also, like, even in...
You want his bank account number?
You know,
Stealing court.
even in current stuff that's being filmed now that has become largely popular, you know, there are so many different references back to Nightmare. And I mean, all kinds of 80s culture and slasher films. You could relate it to the whole
Dude,
series.
Stranger Things
But
4
Stranger
is
Things-
literally
But even
all about
even
Nightmare
in the
on Elm Street.
beginning, though, even in the beginning of Stranger Things, where one of the main characters is named Nancy, that's definitely a throwback to the first one for sure. But
The
there's
first
so many
girl
different
killed in
references
part
to
4
Nightmare.
is named God, it was the girl from part 3. What was her friend in the beginning of part 3? Fuck! No, I forgot.
Debbie?
Not Debbie.
Taryn.
No, Taryn's... No,
Years
not,
later.
not part 3, part 4. It was the girl that seemed like she was going to be the lead character.
Scott
Kirsten.
Stapp.
Kirsten was the girl's name who died, and she literally dies by being drug up to the ceiling and murdered by the ceiling kill. And Robert Englund's actually in Stranger Things 4, so it's like, it's all about Nightmare.
It's so nice to see, like, today's entertainment throwing homage back to those things, like the Doctor Strange with the Sam and the Stranger Things with the and like, I'm loving all of this. All right,
Before we move on, one more thing.
I have one.
I know I give this movie a lot of shit, but in my humble opinion, A Nightmare on Elm Street is Wes Craven's best film, period. However, there was the potential there for him to do so much better than even this if he would have just made the movie about the guy that was railing Tina's mom at the very beginning. When she comes in to check on her after she's had the nightmare, and she's like, "Honey, are you okay?" And this guy just comes walking in. He's like, "Where'd you go? I was about to nut." You know?
That's not that movie.
Well, I have one more thing about the first movie before we move on. In just last year, in 2021, it was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Oh, fair. That's awesome.
Grim, you have anything y'all want to add about the first movie?
So was Armageddon, though.
Damn it. You just ruined the accolade.
I don't know if that's true.
You just potentially ruined the accolade.
Hi guys, this has been a coverage of whatever the fuck we just covered. Tune in next time for the next part of it.
Is that what the script said, Grim?
Shut the fuck up, Scott.
That's what the script said.
Awesome. I think that the problem with doing like all the movies in one is that we researched all the movies and a lot of those points got lost because we're going like all this all at one time, and I'd really like to focus in on movie by movie. So next episode will be part 2.
Good for you.
Hey guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in to ROTN Mournings and making this the #1 rated rotten podcast.
In South
You
Africa.
suck!
And the top 300 in South Africa.
Yeah.
1 week. Yeah.
And
The door was always blue.
You're a fucking liar, and I will beat the shit out of you. That is bullshit. Bullshit. The
Stay
door was
rotten.
red.
Stay rotten.
Stay rotten.
Meow.
Fucking god damn it.
Ah!
Stay rotten.
Stay smartin'.
No.
The door's blue.
Oh my god.
Join us next time for another episode of Rotten Mournings.